This is the final word story time, number 231. Jeff Lemon, Adam Collins, brought to you by Maurice Blackburn, the number one plaintiff law firm in the Commonwealth of Australia. 231. A couple of zingers off the top. 231. Tilan Samarawira made 231 just before he got a bullet in the leg in Pakistan in 2009, and then remarkably came back from that and made more double hundreds. He was a remarkable story. And the patron saint of the final word, probably our favourite player of all time, Vinu Mankad, highest test score, 231, when he did the Kiwis slowly in Chennai. And it was a couple of double hundreds that he made in his career. Adam, 231, here we are. Welcome to you.
Yes, here I am, decked out in the ICC colours for the World Test Championship. I figure by the time this goes live, we will all have World Test Championship final fever. And they gave us these beautiful long-sleeve cricket jumpers when we were at the Oval a couple of years ago. I don't know how they landed upon black and grey being the colours of the WTC. You don't see it in any other
New
ICC
Zealand won
event.
the first one?
Exclusively. No, this was the same colour scheme for the first final as well. They had all of their... Remember, E-Shirt was presenting it. She had this colour scheme on and so on. I mean, I quite like it for what it's worth, but yes, that's why I am wearing this. I've never worn it in a game, so I'm like, it's too nice a jumper to destroy by actually wearing it in a game of cricket, but it's lovely. And 231, if you were wondering, is Ian Chappell's cap number. So he didn't make it onto the 1964 Ashes trip. I've been reading the book that has been written about that series, and that'll feature in book club soon. Max Bennell wrote that. But yes, the Ian Chappell wasn't taken. Others were. I mentioned Rex Sellers last week and his really interesting story and playing at the end of that trip in India. But Chappell got his opportunity in the summer of 64-65 and, of course, went on to have a long test career, 75 matches, and a story that we know ever so well, having interviewed him in his house, what now feels like an eternity ago. That would have been the January of 2019, one of the very first long-form feature interviews that we did after the pod got a little bit more full-time and a little bit less seasonal, and we had the flexibility to go and do that. So happy memories from a long time ago on the podcast, but a great interview with a great man.
I think it was after we started Patreon, and so we had a tiny little revenue stream for the first time. So we were like, I think we were making, we're like, we're getting like $200 a month. We should spend that on some travel to go, to do the extra legs of trips that we needed to do after being in Canberra, to travel up to Sydney and then to talk to Ian Chappell and then get back to Melbourne, and you were flying out of Canberra and all this other nonsense. Yeah, so it was the first time where we were like, we can actually do this and we're not going to lose money doing it. And that sort of support that Patreon started with is still what carries us on to this day.
It is. In fact, I went back and forth from Canberra to Sydney, and then I returned to Canberra that night in order to make my flight from there back to the UK, I suppose it would have been at the end of all of that. So it was a lengthy push to get up there in a day and back again. We were in the back of a car with a television that Pete Lawler was driving to Sydney, weren't we? I think Ben Horn's car, Pete Lawler in the front seat, or vice versa. Yep. And then you, me, and a huge television. That was the journey up the M1. Different times, but the fundamentals, as you say, remain the same. Patreon is the lifeblood of this show. I've got a couple of bits by way of introduction. I got a message from Richard on Twitter last week. We both did, which related to the World Cup Super League. I was lamenting its demise on the weekly show, and I thought this was more a story time thing. On Reddit, Richard, who posts under the handle A Year with Jurgen, says that he's been tracking what the World Cup Super League would be if it were being played in this cycle between 23 to 27. And the results are kind of interesting. Sri Lanka, top of the pops with a 71.7% at the moment from 23 matches. They've by far played the most one-dayers since the 23 World Cup. New Zealand second, India third, but India are the only team of the top, I guess it's 12 here, which have played fewer than 10. They've played 9 one-day internationals in this cycle so far. So it's a kind of a bit of a reminder of just how little one-day cricket is played in bilateral series compared to the cycle between 15 and 19, where I think I'm right in saying England played 80 one-day internationals in 4 years. Well, here India might play sort of 20 odd, and they're the team that's most known for the format, having won the Champions Trophy. Australia are in fifth spot by this logic, with about 54%. And there's Pakistan, the Windies, and on it goes. But the teams that would miss out for qualification, automatic qualification, would include England. England are in on this table. This precedes the series they're playing right now, but they've won 4 of 14, which gives them 28.6%, which puts them below Zimbabwe, Bangladesh, and Ireland, if you follow these things. So, that's good work there from Richard. So I thank him for it.
And thanks as well to Kevin Jones, who sent through some detailed stats on partnerships in women's ODI cricket that I was talking about on the show last week. I haven't had time to crunch through that spreadsheet in detail, but it is detailed. That came via Andrew Sampson, so I'm pleased to see that statisticians the world around are biting at the juicy morsels of bait that we throw out on Storytime.
One more for you, Jeff. I thought you'd like this. I've held this back for story time as well. So last Sunday, I played a game for ODB against the Hernhill Welsh, sure, a regular opponent across the years that ODB's been in existence. I think I might have mentioned a few weeks ago that we outrided the team in a day a few weeks ago. Didn't want to make a big deal of it because, they're a great bunch of blokes. Well, it kind of happened again. We won outright inside an afternoon. But the way that it sequenced, there was one little quirk in it where 3 of their batters made pairs, and those 3 batters all faced 3 balls. So 2 of them made golden ducks in the first innings and second ball ducks in the second innings. Mm-hmm. And they were the 2 blokes who were rolled out to open the batting when they were, so that we rolled them for about, I think 120 odd. Then we made 205 for 5 or 6 declared, going at a pretty decent lick, sent them back in. And both of their openers got second ball ducks, having gotten first ball ducks in the first innings. And then their captain, Will, who's a terrific fella, who got a second ball duck in the first dig, got a beauty in the first innings. They got an even better one in the second, got a golden. So they went 2 balls, 1 ball. So I don't think 3 batters facing 3 balls for 3 ducks in a day. I mean, I doubt anything quite. Well, I'm sure it has happened because everything's happened, but it felt unusual enough to mention to you. And at that point, they were 3 for none. And I think we all had the same thought on the field, both teams. Oh, fuck, this is going to end up on the BBC Sports website, because last week, North London playing Richmond were all out for 2, having conceded 400 in a 4th 11 game. Ooh. And this had added context of, I think they were going to not play because they didn't have enough players, and they got some ring-ins who, weren't cricketers at all, and thus they conceded a shed load and then were rolled in 5 overs. And that made headlines last week, and I think we all thought as one, God, we're going to bowl them out for 10 or something here. This is going a bit too far. But to their immense credit, they got in the lead. They got to 90 odd, and we did have to bat a second time. That second innings chase, though, Jeff, another quirk. I think we must have been 3 to win. 3 to win, yeah. And the first ball of our chase was a beamer that ran away for 4 byes. So our chase we won by 10 wickets, none for 5 in the second dig from 0.0 overs. Because there's no legal delivery sent down. So we managed to chase in 0
without
balls.
Facing a ball.
Without facing a legal delivery. So very, very final word energy, or story time energy. But yeah, terrific bunch of fellas. And thanks to Will for being as magnanimous about it as you could be in the circumstances, having organised the game and bagged the pair and all of that. But we will see them next season, because that's the way these games work.
I was just trying to figure out what's worse. Would you rather get the second bowler and then the first? I think you'd rather get the first bowler and then the 2.
I think so.
You? You'd rather go gold and silver rather than silver gold.
Yeah,
I would have thought.
It was some good bowl. I mean, I'm not saying every ball that was bowled on the day was high class or anything like that, but I think the guys that got ducks in that run could all consider themselves. Dan Gallen, former final word host, occasional final word contributor. He accounted for, I think, 4 of those ducks with his in-swinging Yorkers that all managed to be on target on his birthday. He was twice on a hat trick on his birthday, and that would have been something.
Didn't finish.
Anyway,
it off. Didn't want it enough. The classic that's the Daniel intro. Gallen story.
That's us.
Very
good.
good.
And here's the ball from the second innings as well. You get to keep them and you get 5. Not that it matters an awful lot, but it did happen.
I love it. Let's do the thing that we are here to do, and the thing that we have come to do is play the game. The game is called Nerd Pledge. Nerd Pledge, the game that we play with all those nice people on Patreon, the ones who fund the show voluntarily. They don't have to, but they decide to throw a few bucks in the tin, and they throw it in a very specific configuration, one that links to cricket in some way. The number links, we have to figure out what it means. Tom Logan sent through £6.64. Now, we pursued Tom Logan to find out if there was a clue. Didn't get a clue. So we've just got an open field. We've got 664. You can put the decimal anywhere you like. You can interpret it in any way you like. This is the beauty of story time, the joy of the craft. I have no idea what you've come up with because we don't share our findings before the show. So 664, what do you got? It could just be a good 3 balls for a batter, but it's probably not.
Yeah, it's probably not. This is partly why I love story time. We've been making this for years and years now. When you say edition 231 of the show, and stories like this and the route that I'm about to take now proves to me that we can do this forever, because the way the sport works with numbers being configured the way that they are and so on. So, I mean, I could tell you a story about the 6 for 64 that Shane Warne took in the other innings when he picked up his test hat trick, but that would be a bit of an odd pledge given it's in Sterling here in GBP. Or maybe Sam Robson's cap number. Test player 664, struggling with my pronunciation today. But we had Sam on the show only a few weeks ago. So why would I tell you his story again? All I would say about Sam is that I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, and looking increasingly likely he will turn out for the final word against Zero Ducks Given on the 18th of August. He's got a Metro Bank game the day after, and he'll be training that morning, but he will come straight from training to Wormsley, and he will be there to hopefully face his old mate Stephen Finn. I should say, by the way, buy tickets to that. The tabs have got them on sale at the moment. 90 quid for the marquee, which is a steal, because normally these things are an awful lot more than 90 quid at Wormsley. Enjoy your day. Get your day off work. 18th of August. More big name signings to come soon. But that's the news I have to share right now. That Middlesex opener, who's just welcomed a little baby in the last few weeks as well, Sam Robson, will be with us on that day, and all the other final word friends along the way. Now, I thought we could do better because of, I thought this might be something going back into the history of time. And to do so, I want to tell you about a guy called James Joseph Kelly. JJ Kelly, Jim, Mother, Stumper. I love a man of many nicknames.
Why is he Mother?
I honestly can't find out. I've tried. Believe me, I've tried. I love cricketers with many nicknames. Mentioned ODB before, play with Tom Cooper, who you know as well, Jeff. He's been a patron and supporter of ours over the years. He's known as, in our team, Tom Cooper Clark, don't really know why, which has morphed into TCC or T Yes Yes or the Gruffalo or the Gator. He's got so many nicknames. He's the kind of person I want in my team, a person who's earned a lot of nicknames over the years. And this is what Jim Kelly, he was mostly known as Jim or JJ for the purpose of our conversation today. He was the 75th man to play Test cricket for Australia. More on that later. He was born in 1867 in Port Melbourne, which were the mean streets of Port Melbourne back in the 19th century. Back when it was called Sandridge, I knew that. I remembered that from when I studied. I got away with doing a unit at Monash as part of my BA, which was called something like the history of Melbourne streets or something like that. Seriously. That's not a bad subject to get. It had some fluffy title that, but it was taught and I studied it and I loved it. I remember I wrote my major essay on Victoria Park and larrikinism in the 19th century. It was a fun topic to get into about 20 odd years ago.
You were well placed when the larrikins of 1879 came across your desk.
Indeed.
To inform that. Yeah, because a lot of the places had different names. South Melbourne was Emerald Hill. Yeah. I remember from the Laurie Nash story that he was officially born in Emerald Hill as it came across. Anyway, right. So JJ...
Collingwood was the carrying bush, not really, but kind of.
Yeah. And James Kelly's probably one of the most common names in Australian history, given all the Irish who came out.
That's right. So Jim Kelly, James Kelly, JJ Kelly, the mother, was a cricketer indeed. And look, he makes his first class debut in England, which is a lovely little quirk.
So many. We've got Father Charles Marriott. Yeah. We've got Dad Weir, who played for New Zealand, and now we've got Mother Kelly.
Mother Kelly. So he would have played for Victoria, but the problem he had was that Jack Blackham played for Victoria and he was the best keeper in the world. So there was no room.
You're Daryl Strawberry. Yes, you play right field.
Yes.
Yes, I play right field.
Yes.
Are you better than me?
I don't know.
I've never met you, but yes.
Yes. So, yes, Mother Kelly was the Homer Simpson to the Daryl Strawberry that was Jack Blackham in the late 19th century. That much is true. So our guy, did as many have over the years and still do. He changed states. He went up the he went up the Hume Highway. I suppose it wouldn't have been called the Hume Highway then, to Sydney in the 18th.
Jason Frazier turning out for Tassie.
Yeah, that's it. 1894 was when he lobbed in Sydney and went to the Paddington Cricket Club. And because he was seen, there was this public outcry about how good he was with the gloves. And there was an internal view as well that he was the best keeper. But Blackham had obviously done it since the start, and there was this sense of loyalty towards him. So they took them both. And Kelly went as the reserve keeper. But by the time they made it to the first test match, like, this is ridiculous. This guy's got to keep. He's just too good. He's just too effective. So he overtook Blackham on tour in England in 1896, which is where he earned his maiden cap, both for in first-class cricket and also in Test cricket. So he went on to have a fine tour by all reports, both, well, initially with the gloves. He picked up 37 catches and 22 stumpings to assert himself. He was the kind of guy who'd love to keep up to the stumps to anyone who was bowling. He very rarely...
crazy ratio of stumpings to catches in a modern context.
Yeah, that's it. But it goes to the way he kept. He only really went back when Tibby Cotter was bowling. He liked to stand up. So that was part of his vibe. And the test matches that he played in 1896 started 36 consecutive matches across a decade, which kind of says something about how he was seen. There was never any doubt about his spot. Now, his first, quirky one here, his first game at Lord's was against MCC, where the touring Australians were rolled for 18, and he top scored with 8. So he's nearly Bannerman. We could have Bannerman with another boundary.
With 8.
He nearly got up towards that. So that was not a particularly good day against MCC, but that's on that first trip. The second test of the series was far more important, though, that contribution with the bat. He came in with 25 runs needed in the test match, second test, so a lot riding on it. 2 wickets to get for England, but he and Hugh Trumbull added 25 in an hour. Took him an hour to knock the runs off. And Captain Harry Trott was so nervous that he got a taxi and left the ground and left them to it, which is another great.
Just doing laps?
I'm also not sure what a taxi would have constituted in 1896.
Must have been a handsome cab. What ground were they at?
Old Trafford, yeah. I think
Old Trafford, okay.
Jumped with a horse and cart or some version of that.
So he would have been going down to like Altrincham or something to the end of, to the tram stop. Did the trams exist then? Horse-drawn ones?
Anywhere but.
And then popping back up, back up to Trafford Bar, back down to, to Chorlton cum Hardy.
I kind of get it. I've got friends that have done stuff like this. One of my best mates, Ryan Mason, 2013 prelim, left, did laps to the ground. He was too nervous. People do stuff like that. People respond weirdly to nervous, tense situations. So I do remember.
My Uncle Peter used to leave the country anytime Geelong made a grand final. He would just be like, can't do it. I've got to, he's a photographer, so he'd just go, all right, just going to book a work trip. If they've made it, I'm out.
I'm trying to think if I've ever done something as extreme as that, being nervous at a game of cricket. I mean, you kind of watch through your hands. You hear of teams. I interviewed Steve Elworthy, who's these days the chief executive at Surrey, about the 99 semi-final in that greatest season that was series. And he said that he was gathered in the dressing room with 3 or 4 players, including Herschel Gibbs, and they didn't know that the tie had happened until about 5 seconds later when the television, because they were on delay by how many, 4 or 5 seconds. So they didn't know that they'd lost their spot in the final with the Donald Clusner run out. All they heard was the commotion, and they had to wait for it to appear on television.
Anything.
Could have meant anything. They didn't know what it meant.
Right. Because one of the great games is guess the roar, like when you're outside the ground
it's
and
a
you go,
Hawthorn
what's
goal
that?
Or it's a Carlton goal or whatever it is.
But particularly for cricket where there are so many variations where you go, that's the sound of a long chase to the boundary and a dive that's kept it to 3, or a long chase to the boundary and a dive that's tried to keep it for 3 but then has knocked it over for 4 afterwards. Yeah. Like there are so many variations with the ooh and the ah and the ah, and then like the sort of one where they're almost laughing, but like the noise for a crazy catch is much more spontaneous than like the noise for a boundary, because you got to process that it's happened, it's slightly delayed, and it's quite fun being outside figuring out what's happening inside.
My dad turned 64 today, and he used to do that for. I just mentioned his birthday in passing. Hello, Dad. I did speak to you today, but you'll be listening to this in a few days' time, I guess. And he
had his birthday yesterday to beat the traffic.
That's right. And he used to say that when we were outside the ground. Probably when leaving games early, come to think of it. He would no, it was probably more when we were lapping the outside of the ground after halftime or something. He would identify when it was a Hawthorn goal or not. He would just say, no, that's a Hawthorn draw. Or that's the other team's draw, which, I love the faux science and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
All part of the charm of growing up watching the footy week in, week out, which I'm very, very happy. The older I get, the happier I get that I got to have that as a central part of my childhood when life was a lot simpler. In the 80s and the 90s. Anyway, right, so that partnership where Harry Trott went walkabout, they did win the test by 2 wickets, so job done. Now, I mentioned Trumbull. A lot of the work that JJ did, that Jim did, was to Trumbull, because, that's when he's at the peak of his powers and he's up to the stumps to him, taking lots of catches and taking lots of stumpings. They had a great lifelong bond. They were born just 2 days apart from each other. I'll come back to more about Trumbull and Kelly's relationship later, lifelong friendship. But yeah, how did he do it? I've seen a photograph of him wicket keeping. I'll read you out a summary that I read of it. Kelly kept wicket in the older style, legs apart and knees rigid. He waited for the bowler with arms stretched forward towards the stumps. So I'm thinking almost like a standing up baseball catcher where the glove would be thrust forward. And he had his gloves thrust forward and his legs akimbo, basically. Straight splayed legs with knees rigid. So not how we imagine now getting down in the crouch. He just did things in a way that I suppose was homespun or self-taught. I don't really know. It says here the older style. So there must have been evolution in the way that wicketkeepers set up in their crouch. And he was more drawn to the old-fashioned way. God knows how he managed to get down low. There were
keepers. I think it was Blackham, wasn't it, who was the one who kind of pioneered standing up to the stumps, because generally they would just stand back and basically act as a fielder and kind of field the ball off the ground rather than trying to intercept the ball up to the stumps.
Right. And the other thing was that Kelly was 183 centimetres tall, which when you think about the time, that's a giant in 1900 money, right? Like if you're 183... That's the equivalent of being 6'6" now with the way that humans have grown.
Yeah.
Well, is that likely to
keep going
in the same exponential way that it has in the 20th century? Like, are we likely to see everyone in 2100 looking like they're Dutch? Is that a thing?
I mean, I hope so, because then I could just get carried around by enormous dudes. It'd be fun. You'd just be like, pick me up, take me over there. That'd be great, especially when you're old. That'd be nice. It is nice being around Dutch people as I'm tall in Australian money, but in Netherlands, it's like you're 6'5", you whatever. Like that's just normal.
Yeah, it's
kind of nice being able to blend into the background and just be in the average.
Yeah, you don't get out of bed unless you're 6'2" in Holland. Anyway, he had a big mo as well, Kelly. Okay. Had a reputation for being so tidy. So in 1897-98, he was playing a test match at Sydney. England made 551, not a single bye. Not a single bye. When you consider uncovered pitches and keeping up to everybody, that couldn't have been easy. And look, Blackham was up to everybody as well. I'm not saying he was the only one to do that, but, it gives a sense of the type of cricketer that he was. In 1901-02, he took 8 catches in an innings, again, mostly up to the pegs. By that stage, he's keeping to not only to Trumbull, but to Noble and to a young Warwick Armstrong as well. He was a Wisden Cricketer of the Year in 1902 with Warwick Armstrong. Actually, it might have been 1903. It doesn't really matter. 1902 or 1903. One of those 2 years, I didn't write it down. He was the Wisden Cricketer of the Year, and Warwick Armstrong was one of them. And Victor Trumper. Now, via Victor Trumper, let's pivot to his batting. Quote, he lacked grace as a batsman. But, he did average 20, which at the time, in context, got to remember this is when wicketkeepers batted down at 9, 10 or 11. Averaging 20, it's pretty strong. And a suppression of scores more generally compared to what we're conditioned to now. Got a few hundreds, one for New South Wales in 1897 against South Australia in the Sheffield Shield. Got one against Warwickshire when touring England, one of the 4 times he went to England, and got one in a rest of the world match playing for an Australian 11. So 3 first-class centuries, all told, an average of 19.94 over 4,000 runs in his 185 first-class matches. Most notably, though...
It would have been... I was just thinking with the Wisden thing, it would have been It would have been 1903, wouldn't it?
Must
Because
be.
1902 is an Ashes year, isn't it?
Well, that's right. Yeah,
that's
actually,
an England tour.
You're quite right. Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it's 1903 because 1902 they visited with the Australian team.
Yeah.
And that was when
I always get mixed up with the following year bit as well. The wisdom thing throws me off all the time.
No, of course it is because 1902 is the year when Trumper has his worldly. So that all lines up. Where was I? So batting, and I'm going to get into his batting via Trumper here. So his most notable innings was actually in concert with Trumper in a grade game for Paddington, where they put on 219 for the 6th wicket.
Is that when Trumper goes fucking crazy? The famous one where he hits like 23 fives or something,
and gets 189 not out in no time at all. So this is a famous club game where down the other end we've got James, Jim, JJ Kelly, mother, and just to reinforce the connection. And maybe this was all a bit too cute, but who knows? Okay. So JJ married a woman named Mary Biggs, whose sister Sarah married Victor Trumper. So Trumpers, so they were brother-in-laws, but both on the other side of the family.
Were they before the innings, or was this was the innings so good that they were like, we should marry the same?
We should marry sisters together. That's quite fun.
From one partnership to another.
Hey, I mentioned Trumbull earlier. You know how I said they were born 2 days apart, which is kind of an amazing thing given how much Test cricket they played together. They died on the same day.
Whoa.
They died on the 14th of August, 1938, as a pair of 71-year-olds. So lifelong friends, born 2 days apart and passing away on the same day, many years after they finished their cricket in their 70s. So, it's one of those quirks that they shared their time on the planet together, almost entirely the same. And you add to that the dressing rooms they shared as well. So that's pretty special, I think. There was an article a couple of years before he passed away, which I got my hands on, which talked about how remarkable it was that between the start of Test cricket in 1877 and when this was published in 1936, there'd only been 4 keepers, and it went in to explain the contribution that Kelly made as part of that. It's mostly about Kelly being the second in the sequence after Blackham. So again, you got an idea of the esteem he was held in, right? Now, he eventually stops playing in 1905, which was the last of his 4 trips to England, when he was hit above the heart when batting at Old Trafford, the same ground where he made that important contribution with the bat some 9 years earlier. But the reality is his hands are already knackered because he's done so much work across a decade. So that's when he decided to call it a day. And why 664 for our pledge? Well, he made 664 test runs in those 36 test matches, and he went on to work as a public servant at the Sydney Town Hall through the rest of his career. And for all of this, and I thank Pat Rogers for the research that he dug out for me on this, for all of this, for a keeper and a player of such repute, of 36 test matches, which in 2025 speak across a decade, he's probably played 136, not 36. No Cricinfo page. Really very, very little about him on the internet, full stop. So what we've been pondering is, has anyone who's played this many test matches, or maybe a percentage of test matches relative to those played entirely, have not had a blurb on their Cricinfo page? And that extends to, can we write it? Can we, as the final word, now write a Cricinfo blurb for him? Some cricketers have long book chapter length entries. I mean,
they're often wisdom excerpts from an obituary, and then others just get like a random bit that's snipped out of an article somewhere else on Cricinfo, a paragraph or so.
I know we're doing the Nerd Pledge book right now, which will be out for Christmas, but it's a shame this won't make it, and maybe it wouldn't qualify. I don't know whether the story's good enough. Hard to tell when you've been reading about it all day. But should we do this? I sort of feel like we should write 400 words and let it stand on the public record, because this guy, James, JJ, Mother, Kelly, deserves it, in my 36 opinion.
There are so many one test players who've got there are players with no tests who've got a first class career that's interesting, who've got a biography. How does one of us, who are the four, so it's Blackham, Kelly, Oldfield, and who would be the one in between Kelly and Oldfield? Because Oldfield's kind of post World War One into the 30s.
That's true.
Who's the one I'm forgetting?
Not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I need to check that. Off the top of my head, I don't know. But yeah,
when did Kelly go through until?
1905 was his final test match. So there's someone that must bridge Kelly to Oldfield. If I thought about it for 10 minutes, I'll be able to work it out.
South Africa tri-series keeper, whoever's keeping in the Warren Bardsley teams.
So yeah, that's for Tom Logan, who's our new pledger. 664 in the Sterling. Great to have you with us, Tom. Hopefully it's a long stay with us. Patreon.com/thefinalword. For it is people like you, Tom, who make it all work for people like Jeff and me and enable this to be basically these days, not basically, it is our full-time existence. So full-time that we don't have time to do anything else, which can sometimes be prohibitive, which is partly why I don't have a sponsor lined up for the England-India series yet. Please get in touch, adam@findawarecricket.com. You can be that, and we can love up on you in the very same way that we love up on our dear friends, our principal partner on season 18 and 19 of the show, Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. Now, in June and July, we're going to be telling you anecdote stories, cameos, if you like, about the work they do. Got one here in relation to
cameo.com. Let's get Fran Drescher to tell us about Maurice Blackburn.
Why not? Well, you know what? That's an investment I'm happy to make. Let's get Fran Fine. Get Fran Drescher as Fran Fine telling us about Maurice Blackburn. Maybe she could tell the story of their lawyer, Connie. Now, I suspect this won't be an upbeat story, so I'll move away from the levity in a seamless segue. Maurice Blackburn lawyer, Connie, recently assisted a man who stopped working back in 2012 because of mental health struggles. Despite the fact that he'd been unable to work for more than 10 years, they were still able to locate his insurance cover and lodge a claim on his behalf, including getting reports from his treating doctors. So it's hard graft, but the experienced lawyers at Maurice Blackburn collected all the material for him a decade later. Then they submitted it on his behalf, and the claim was accepted in just 14 days. And he went on to receive close to $100,000. So this is where, as we've discussed on the show multiple times, where if you're unable to work due to injury or illness and you do have access to a superannuation insurance policy, then it isn't always straightforward to access it. And Maurice Blackburn are front and center on behalf of working people to make sure that you get every single set that you are owed. Some of these stories are hair-raising about just how difficult it's been for people to get access to their super insurance. So if this is something of interest to you, or you want to learn more about super insurance, full stop, then Maurice Blackburn are the people to go to. You can search them in the usual way. You can click through in our show notes, and we're very proud to be in association with them on The Final Word. This is Storytime 231. Adam Collins with you. Jeff Lemon with me. Jeff's turn here. First crack. This is Xavier Bochat.
Yes, the good cat, as we like to call him en français.
He's been with us for a long time, and we love that. We love our patrons that go back to the well. $9.60 in Aussie dollars this time. The clue for you, Jeff, is a marathon innings. Now, Jeff, you've done some marathon answers of late. We'll see where this fits in on that front. But a marathon innings, $9.60 AUD, all yours for Xavier.
All right, let's do it. The X Factor. A marathon innings, first thing you think of aside from Edinburgh and people running marathons, plus half marathons, plus 10Ks, plus 5Ks to do 78 kilometres like mad people. The first thing you think of with marathon innings is Hanif Mohammed, of course, 337, 3 times 37 being 111, the cricket number of Nelson, which is a mathematical quirk that came up when we told this tale in full all the way back. I had to go and check the notes right back to the beginning, Adam. Storytime 38 was when we told the story of Hanif Mohammed's 337. It was a long, long time ago when a young Pakistan team were getting beaten up in the Caribbean in the 1950s, that very strong West Indies team. That had Garfield Sobers making world record scores and all the rest of it. That was an innings to save a 6-day test, which I just had a little glance of it in preparation for this to refresh my memory, remembering that West Indies bat first, Pakistan then get rolled cheaply and follow on. So Hanif Mohammed's opening in the first innings, he's not out overnight at the end of day 2, so resumes on the third morning, gets out for 17. So the score's 40-odd when he gets out. So he's probably batted over an hour at that point. They're probably scoring pretty slowly in those days. So he's batted on day 2 and then the morning of day 3. Then they've been forced to follow on. He's resumed batting halfway through day 3 in the second of the team innings. And then he's batted until after tea on day 6. So he's got one innings that spans 4 days of the test, and he has batted on 5 days of the test match consecutively in a 6-day match to save it. One of the most remarkable batting performances ever. So If I wanted to be vague about the number, Adam, I could say Xavier's number is $9.60. I could say 960 is 16 hours, which is what Hanif Mohammed batted, but he batted 16 hours and 10 minutes.
He did.
So if we were saying round it to the nearest hour, then I could make a case that could work. But I thought I'd go further afield, given we've told that story before.
Yeah, and also how famous the 970 minutes is. It'd be taking the piss to say 16 hours when people know that innings was 970 minutes. We'd be deluding ourselves, and we wouldn't be doing our audience justice. There you go.
Well, people know that, except Hanif Mohammed, who for the rest of his life furiously denied that it was 970 minutes.
He did,
because he reckoned he batted longer.
He did. Now this came up with Norcross and me. We went into the conjecture around it. I can't remember where this landed, but didn't he say that? The 900, didn't he claim that it was 1,004 minutes? He definitely claimed
it was something like 990 is what he claimed. So it wasn't quite 1,000. He didn't quite crack the 1,000. But I'm doing this from memory based on an interview I read with him 5 years ago. But it was something along the lines of that he'd heard it reported on the radio at the time on the day as being the other number, and then the newspapers had reflected a different number. Right. And there was some disparity with the record keeping, or I'm not sure what was on the formal scorecards or if they still exist to find, but he thought he'd been dudded of 20 minutes there. He
never satisfied.
Never satisfied. He probably would have traded that for one extra run when he made the 499, getting run out, coming back for the 500th. Nonetheless, it's not going to be that answer. That is the longest Test innings. There is a guy who cracked the 1,000-minute mark. The longest first class innings was a further 3/4 of an hour longer. Himachal Pradesh, which is the area where Dharamshala is, that team was captained by a fellow called Rajiv Nayar, who did this in the Ranji in 1999. Every crazy batting record you could ever want to find is in the Ranji Trophy. If it's for scale, if it's about tiny scores, it's usually English county cricket or like county versus a university team. Big numbers, India. Yeah,
and partly that's due to the way the finals work there with timeless games where you can win on first innings. So you don't need to win outright to get the.
Yeah.
So I remember Alan Edgar, Big Al, our great mate and umpire to us a lot of the time as well, has done answers on this before where team A makes 700 plus, team B makes 700 plus one to win the game on first innings. So yeah, as you said, it lends itself to stuff like this.
Yeah, well, this was a draw, and they could have maybe bowled out the other mob. They'd already bowled them out once, then batted 255 overs, and then popped them back in for a 5-over spell. A bit too ambitious to try to roll through them in 5 overs at the end. They did take a wicket, so had they given themselves 40 overs, who knows? Anyway, I went with the point of view that Xavier is from memory is someone who's had more of an eye on contemporary Australian cricket. And so I thought perhaps in 2022, Xavier might have enjoyed the work of Abdullah Shafiq opening the batting for Pakistan in a series when you were very excited watching him. I remember you were saying on the daily he's going to make 10,000 runs.
Stand by it. I said it about Shane Watson, and I've said it about Abdullah Shafiq. I said Shane Watson will make 10,000 runs and take 200 Test wickets. Neither of those things happened. Although,
not quite.
Watto probably took more than 100. Probably.
I reckon he took 50.
Yeah, you're probably right. Probably nearer 50 than 100.
I reckon it was I
don't know how many Test runs.
49? I don't know 49 rings a bell for some reason.
I couldn't say how many Test runs Watto made. He was a fine Test cricketer.
4,000?
But he didn't make 10,000. No.
I'm going to say, I reckon 3.5 and 49. I'm just looking it up now to see how I've gone here. Oh, there's 75 Test wickets. Okay, that's better than I thought. 3,700 runs.
Very close to the pin. And what's Shafiq at the moment, if you're wondering, he's got 1,500 Test runs. So a fair way to go. Yeah. And his batting average isn't as high as it might be either. He's played 22 Test matches for an average of 39. But 5 tons, 5 tons, it's a foundation.
Well, it was almost...
Will be to come.
It could have been 6, or it might not have been 6 because he made 100 here. It might have changed everything after that. Who knows? But he did make 96 runs in Karachi in a game that we were commentating on. But I'm not sure, Adam. I don't think we clocked the statistical significance of this innings at the time. So tell me if you recall this.
I feel like I need to refresh my own memory. So,
I'm going to take you through
second innings, Shafiq, he batted with Barbara Azam for a long time when they were following on. and
Yep.
he took it all the way.
They weren't following on. They had a little Australian interlude.
Oh, did Australia have a little second hit? Did they?
Yeah,
I remember
had a little hit. I'm going to walk you through this test because I also had to refresh my memory pretty hard on it, even though we sat. That was the one when we were really crook. Both of us were sick as dogs, and we were
you were a disgrace. I was bad. I was bad briefly, but I was more respiratory bad. You were more just a disgrace bad. You were everything bad because we went to the Burns Road on night one. Remember?
Yeah.
Went to the Burns Road night one, which is where locals tell you should go for a bite to eat. And
for authentic food. And then other locals tell you, do not go there. You are not ready. It will kill you.
Yeah, and you took it harder than most of us did. But yeah, at different points, people were ill through that match. But I remember, being on that balcony because we didn't want to sit in the commentary box because it felt too distant. So I pled our case to be on the balcony in an outside commentary spot, and it was glorious. We had Waqar Yunus with a kite nearly landing on him on top of the tent, which was quite good social media.
As in the bird, not the bird type on the string.
Yes, the bird. So I have great memories of the week at the National Stadium, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, the commentary box was entirely made of tiles and glass, and also everybody was smoking in there when they were off air from TV. So it wasn't a very pleasant place to be trying to call the cricket. Yes,
including Waqar. Everyone smokes in Pakistan. Just having a fact inside the commentary box. Dead right. Yeah.
So, right, very old school. You wanted one of those Brits with a case of red wine rocking up at 10 a.m. Nonetheless, Abdullah Shafiq made 96 runs and batted for 465 minutes in so doing. So 7 hours and whatever that is, 45 minutes. Insane period of time spent at the crease for a relatively low score. So they've had the run fest in Rawalpindi, 14 wickets fall in 5 days, runs. Australia start off in Karachi, more runs. They bat into day 3. Remember, they didn't declare until the third morning.
That's right. This is one of the rare times of batting into day 3. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Khawaja 160 in 556 minutes, so it's 9 hours plus for Khawaja. Smith made 72 in 4.5 hours. Lyon was night watch and made 38. Alex Carey came in and was relatively sprightly, made 93 in 3 hours. Everyone batted, and aside from Labuschagne making a duck at first drop, everyone made double figures, and they declared 9 down. So Swepson was 15 not out. So the lowest dismissed score that wasn't Labuschagne's duck was Travis Head with 23. Everybody made runs through that period.
Was this one of the Marnus run-outs, or was that Lahore when he got run out? He got run out in one of them. I remember that. There was a quirk.
Didn't note his mode of dismissal, but I don't think it was run out.
I remember one of them was a run out in that sequence where he made a couple of ducks towards the end of the series. Anyway, not to worry.
So everyone gets runs. They bat for 189 overs, turn around, do Pakistan in 53 overs, all out 148. So Australia bat again briefly. They only bat for 22 and a half overs, but that takes them through to stumps, and then they bat a little bit on the next morning just to annoy Pakistan's bowlers, and then they declare and put Pakistan back in. So they've got the best part of 2 days that they have to bat. Abdullah Shafiq responds exactly as you would like someone to do, digs in deluxe. So they knock over Imam ul Haq for 1 and Azhar Ali for 2. The score's 21 for 2 for 21, which you would think sounds like an early collapse, but even that, it's the 23rd over before that second wicket falls. So they've batted a long time to make no runs. At that point, Abdullah Shafiq is 14 from 62 balls. He doesn't hit a boundary until his 89th delivery when he guides Cummins through the slips cordon. Then he hits 2 boundaries in 3 balls, whacks Cummins over mid-wicket, and then he goes back to not doing that for a very, very long time. So he reaches T on 44. He makes 27 runs in the final session. So long final session, not a lot of scoring going on. And he ends up on 70-odd at stumps. Babar Azam, who started batting after him, brings up 100 when Shafiq is on 66. He comes out on day 5, starts with 15 dot balls, takes them past 200. Pakistan get all the way up to 249, and it's the second last over before the lunch break on day 5 when Cummins gets the ball to reverse away, takes the edge, goes to Smith in the cordon, who dropped him earlier in the innings, and Shafiq is out for 96 from 305 balls, 465 minutes to miss out on the ton.
Yeah, that was the... Just trying to think when that happened. Did you note when that was, when the ton was missed out on? How deep into it were we?
He was on maybe 30 when he got dropped. I think it was relatively early.
Right. Yeah. My recollection was that by the time day 4 was becoming day 5, it still felt like formality that Australia, that something breaks for them. Barber Azam, when he gets to that 100 before stumps, I took a photograph with my long lens, which I bought specifically for that Pakistan trip. I wanted to be able to, get really nice close-up shots. And he was just so defiant. It was like, I am not even close to being done yet. And so it proved the next day when he, a combination of digging in, and I'm sure you'll explain in a sec, starting to accelerate, they gave themselves more than a chance of looking like they could theoretically chase down the total, which would have been smashing all the records.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, they needed 506, I think it was, to win, and they crossed 400 with Baba and Rizwan, looking like they're going for it for a while there. Babar Azam ends up on 196, Rizwan 104 not out. So
and Australia are breaking too. One more thing I'll add: there's a Swepson over where in 2 balls consecutively he has Babar Azam dropped close to the wicket. Once I think was Labuschagne, once was head. Sorry if I've gotten either that wrong. It'll be okay. They won't be listening. It's all right. But that could have changed Swepson's career. I told the story of Mitch Swepson recently. And that would have been when Barber was more like in the 120s or 130s. They get Barber then, and the game probably does open up, acknowledging that Rizwan goes to play an absolute blinder of an innings. But still, like it, as it often can be when you're bowling fourth, you're only ever a wicket or 2 away from busting the whole game open. But they were never able to quite do it until it was just too late in the final half an hour.
Yeah, and Rizwan shuts it down later when he loses Barber. He's like, all right, we're just going to play safe here and make sure that we get the draw. But I'm
not sure he did. I'm not sure. Didn't he keep going? Because he lost.
He kept going for a bit, and then there was a point. There was kind of that last half hour or so where he went, it's too far afield. I reckon he kept going until pretty late in the piece. I was calling that last hour with Bharat. I reckon he kept going until the point where it got to like 15s required. Because remember, he was put down by Khawaja at mid-on, wearing the helmet. Yeah, that was after they'd shut up shop. That's when he's coming forward and just playing a little chip drive to that short straight mid-off position. But he'd put it away by then. They were going back and forth, sort of toying with it, and then not quite. But a couple of wickets fell at the other end, so they ended up 7 down by stumps. And I think for that last sort of 30, 40 minutes, you've got Rizwan going, it's not worth it. I could almost do it. You could tell he was tempted. So because they end up 64 short of the win. It's not, if he's got someone with him for another 30, 40 minutes.
It was a thrilling end. It was a genuinely great end to the test match, because you can have all sorts of great finishes, and a team finishing 64 short when they're chasing 500, when one bloke's made 196 and the other flourishes to 100. When the game was safe, he then mowed it in the last over or so to get 100. And when Australia did put a couple of late chances down, with maybe 3 or 4 overs remaining, and that was also off the bowling of Swepson, if I recall correctly. Even until 2 overs to go, they would have had faith. And then Nathan Lyon gets given the check for the bowler of the day or something like that. And I remember beneath us, he kicked the check away in just complete, well, I was going to say disgust, not disgust, but he was just so dismayed at being in a side that hadn't bowled out a team in the 4th innings after nearly 2 full days of toil. He just could not believe it. I mean, yes, it was the flattest track in the world, but still, you expect
Pindy was the flattest track in the world.
So this was the second flattest
track. Yeah. But it's built on, all of this is built on this 96 from Shafiq, but this is what really jumped out at me. It's the slowest 96 ever made in terms of time. In fact, it's the slowest score of between 90 and 98 in Test cricket ever made in terms of time batted. The only slower score in the 90s, so ML Jaisma, who's the very stylish Indian captain who I talked about last week, who batted with the neckerchief and all that flair, didn't always bat with flair. One time made 99 in 505 minutes. But that's the only slower score in the 90s that's ever been made in Test cricket than what Abdullah Shafiq did in that Test. This is the bit that I don't think we clocked, is that he'd pulled out an all-time innings of resistance, the way he batted through all that chunk of day 4 and then a lot of day 5 to make that draw possible, to make the game safe so that it could be attacked by Babar and Rizwan. And so then I looked around, I thought, what about scores outside of 90? Has anyone made a lower score from more time batted at the crease? There are a few lower scores from more balls faced, where you've got one player soaking up most of the bowling, I assume, when maybe it's a lopsided kind of batting card. But because this was relatively even, he didn't, in terms of who he was batting with, he didn't have to face as much of the bowling. But so there've been like 20-odd innings where players have made a lower score from more balls faced than he faced.
Right.
But there have been 2 scores ever lower than 96 that took longer to make than our guy. 2 scores in the history of Test cricket, and they are a perfect 2 scores for this kind of thing. One,
well, I think, if I was guessing, I'd be thinking Bailey and Tavares might have one or the other or both.
Chris Tavares.
Famously, Tavares, powers of resistance and so on. Anyway, you continue. That'd be my first guess.
Your first guess is correct for one of them. Chris Tavares made 89 while batting 1 minute longer than Abdullah Shafiq at the Wacker in 1982. So I hope the clocks were correct.
Terrific.
And the other, I love this.
Yeah.
86 from 474 minutes.
I'll take a guess. Is it Mark Greatbatch?
No. He does have a very long innings to save a game at Melbourne, was it? The draw in Melbourne?
Okay, give me more clues. I want to do this. Where are we? What country are we in?
Okay, so 9 minutes longer than Abdullah Shafiq and 10 runs fewer. 86 from 474 minutes. We're not only in the same country, we're at the same ground.
Oh, at Karachi.
Okay.
No, I'm at it would take too long.
Depth here.
Yeah.
The year is 1990.
Okay. A slow innings at Karachi in 1990. No, I'm not going to get there. It's all good.
The opponent, fittingly, West Indies.
Oh.
The player, Shoaib Mohammed.
Oh, right.
Son of Hanif Mohammed.
Yeah.
Where we started our answer.
Love it.
We circle all the way back when it comes to batting a bloody long time. And I think that could be the answer for Xavier, could be the 96 for Abdullah Shafiq via the Mohammed family, who had so many Test cricketers between them.
Well, if it is, then what an answer it would be. Thank you, Xavier, for your ongoing support of what we do here on The Final Word. We've got a couple of answers to go. We'll take our last break and then we'll come back to me in a moment. A reminder that NordVPN have been great supporters of us on the show for a really long time. NordVPN/TFW. Make sure that you have exactly what you need when you travel this summer. This northern summer I'm talking about. Or indeed, you might be coming over for the World Test Championship final next week. You might be about to board your flight to Heathrow right now. Don't do it without your NordVPN. You won't be able to watch your footy team play when you're over here. Not to say that you need to do that. I sometimes feel like I can get a bit judgy about people that watch just a little bit too much footy when they live over here. Give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance to immerse yourself in the culture. But it's worth watching your own team play. That much I will say. NordVPN will help you in that enterprise. You will get so many free months. You will be incentivized to remain a NordVPN member for the rest of time. And we have a discount code right there at that link, nordvpn.com/TFU. I've been typically giving TV recommendations when doing this recently, but I've been watching that Lockerbie thing on BBC, and I, for the life of me, still can't work out why they've made a 6-part show when all the tension was taken out in about the first 12 minutes. So I'm not going to continue with it. I'll find something else to watch tonight.
Sometimes it's nice to stop. Sometimes you watch. It's good to have the discipline, the rationale to say, I'm not enjoying this anymore.
No.
I don't know. It was about 5 seasons into The Walking Dead where I was like, I think I've watched enough. People having their heads smashed in.
I was done with that as well. I was done. I can't remember the what got me to stop, but I remember there was a point in time.
Fatigue.
Probably around the same time, about season 4, season 5. I'm like, okay, I'm good with that now. I don't really care how it goes from here. Yes, there are inevitable walkers to deal with. Did they get
there are always more, and the tension seems to have run down because there's always someone else, and we're on to like our 3rd rotation of characters because all the original ones are dead, and it's just all a bit too depressing. But you can then find something else to watch, which you can watch through NordVPN. Check the link. It's in the show notes. We'll be back in 1 second.
All right, it's Storytime 231. I'm next, Jeff, and we're going to rattle through this reasonably quickly, I would imagine. For Dan, who's new. Dan's new.
Dan's
good.
New.
Hello,
Welcome,
Dan.
Good to have a Dan. Dan probably has a last name, but he may not have told us what it is. We don't have it in front of us. So, Dan, I hope you know that this is you. You will, because you'll know your number is $4.72. You'll know that it's in AUD.
Great.
And you'll know that this is your clue, which says, all I'll say is that this sexy player who is not from the old world of cricket is often mistaken for a vegetarian. He now enjoys 4 square meals a day.
What a great clue. Dan, you must be a long-term listener to the show, because what you've done there, you've given us, it's cryptic enough, but it's easy to work out. We don't mind cryptic as long as it's like there's enough stuff to hook.
There's a path through it.
That's it. That's well described. There's a pathway to knowing what this must be. Now, another I'm going to have. There's so much fun to be had with this. Not from the old world. Well, we agreed that was going to be New Zealand in our research. 2005, the sexiest vegetarian in the world competition tournament. They didn't compete. I mean, maybe they should. Maybe they should
just
have competed.
Sensually eating a feta and spinach triangle.
Yeah, indeed.
Wow.
Well, this was a competition run by Peter. I went and read about it. And who beat out both Tom York and Natalie Portman for the sexiest vegetarian? I mean, they're two fairly sexy people in their own ways. Chris Martin. Who knew? And I've been done an
Coldplay one.
And I've been done an absolute beauty by this because I got about 30 seconds into this thinking, how the fuck did our Chris Martin knock off Tom York and Natalie Portman? It's not our Chris Martin. The other one.
The Coldplay one.
Yeah.
The Warnie's Mural one.
Which made me wonder.
The Sky Full of Stars. The
other one.
Glitter from the ceiling, jump on a big balloon.
That's fine. Good on you. Seems like a nice enough guy. For all of about 20 seconds, I thought that New Zealand's Chris Martin had seen off Tom York and Natalie Portman.
Seen off Natalie Portman. I doubt it. No.
But I wonder what he was eating at the barbecue. So that suggests that on Warnie's barbecue, where there's the fried brains being cooked up by Hannibal Lecter, that you've also got him doing a spot of halloumi on the side on a separate.
Yeah. I hope so.
I don't tend to ask for the separate. Don't eat meat, but I don't.
No.
If someone says to me, "Do I need to cook the thing on the other?" I'm like, no. That's not where. That's not.
The separate pan's a bit fussy. I think unless you have some actual medical thing, like your pancreas is going to explode or something.
No, I'm not a vegetarian for those reasons. I'm a vegetarian for all the usual boring reasons that have no need for a separate pan. Anyway, so. But,
if somebody accidentally put a quarter of a teaspoon of beef stock in a giant pot of ragu or something, well,
it's just about
suck it up.
Prevailing trends. The prevailing trend is to not eat meat just for lots of reasons. The environment, it maybe marginally helps my body a little bit. Maybe might, I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Right. So Chris Martin. Well, let's go to our Chris Martin. That seems like the link in the chain. Our Chris Martin, the reference to 4 square meals a day. 4 Square is the supermarket that Chris Martin now runs in New Zealand. How do I know that? I read the excellent interview written with him by Bharat Sundaresan. Our man Baz, a few years ago when he was in New Zealand covering the New Zealand-India Test Series, which from memory was just before COVID, I reckon, or just after COVID. Either way, it was in that weird time. And just on Bharat, by the way, our new citizen. He's a new Australian, formally. He has done his citizenship ceremony. There aren't many people who get asked to give a speech at
their own citizenship.
and such is the pulling power and the celebrity status of Baz these days. He gave a speech, which is quite
it was
remarkable.
a beautiful speech.
Indeed it was. He managed to weave in there South Australia winning the Sheffield Shield final and all the rest of it. So he is having the time of his life at the moment. He's over here in the UK. I'm looking forward to teaming up with him next week. He'll be doing some final word stuff with us. And of course, he'll be doing SEM with me. And it'll all be very lovely when we see him next week. So that's Bharat. That's how I know about Chris Martin having the supermarket, which is known as 4 Square. That's how we know categorically what this answer is. So again, thank you to Dan for making sure that we're actually able to get this bit right. From there, however, less clear. From there, however, less clear. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
472 is what we're looking for. There's a couple of 471 economy rate matches from, but it's not that. It's not going to be someone's economy rate in a game. 4.71 is such a nondescript, such a neither here nor there. I wondered whether it might be something to do with ball 47.2 of an innings, but on my scanning of scorecards, there's nothing that would suggest that there is. There might be.
One day cricket did Chris Martin play?
Yeah, I mean a fair bit, but it just doesn't tie off for me. There's nothing that
slam that much actually. I'm just looking him up. 20 ODIs, 71 tests, 20 ODIs.
Oh well, that's part of his. That's part of the story as to why he didn't play more one-day cricket and more 2020 cricket. Is what I'm about to talk about now. It's his batting. So his batting was seen as so poor that when it was touch and go between him and someone else, this doesn't really make a lot of sense because people don't bat an awful lot in limited overs cricket, but maybe there was a perception that he just wasn't that athletic and wasn't that capable or dexterous or whatever. And it's borne out by where he batted. He was a classic specialist number 11. As
Right.
Matt May worked out for me, he batted 104 times in Test cricket and no one ever batted behind him. So, there are a whole bunch of examples where Phil Tufnell batted 10 or where Glenn McGrath batted 10. He only batted 10 4 times, and that's when there were 4 retired Hertz ahead of him, which is quite a nice quirk.
Or as in someone who was hurt and thus didn't bat, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Right. That's it. The way you've explained it's the right way.
Right, like absent hurt.
Absent hurt, yeah. So
right.
The obvious thing here would have been
funny.
Career runs, but it's 479, not 472. I mean, whisper it, pledger error. I mean, we sometimes say, was there a mistake made here? A mistake of 7?
That's always it's always the joke when we're talking about the solutions is that obviously they must have got the number wrong because our answer should be this. I'm just looking at it now. 470. So it's 479 first class runs. He's got 123 test runs.
Did he get 407?
We were talking about the runs and wickets thing the other a couple of weeks ago about who ended up with more wickets than runs, or maybe I was writing about that in the book. I might have been writing about Father Marriott.
Well, Chandrasekhar is the other famous one and we'll come to this in a bit. I'm about to talk about his batting. But yeah.
Right. So 233 test wickets, 123 test runs, but he does it also in first class cricket, 599 wickets, 479 runs. I think that's a reasonable contender for a typo, because if our number's 472 and we've got 479, you could maybe just write it down wrong or...
Well, you're saying there's a chance. I'm
saying there's a chance.
So just to rattle through a few more numbers for you here as we go through it. I suspect we'll come back to this for Dan when we know categorically what it is. So I won't give the full over-the-top answer here, but I'll give you the batting story of Chris Martin to a certain extent. He did make it to double figures once in Test cricket. He got to 12 not out, including back-to-back boundaries against, I should say, when he was facing Shahadat Hossain. And I like this too. There was a whole article in The Night Watchman, which is the Wisden Quarterly, devoted to all of Chris Martin's 15 test boundaries. This was edition number 34.
That's right.
And as it happens, they're about to celebrate edition number 50. I'm going to that, to their trivia night. It's a book launch for Roland Butcher, who has, with Dean Wilson, written an account of his life in cricket. So I'll be heading over to that in a couple of weeks' time. So this was a few years ago in edition number 34, and it goes through how Ian O'Brien, a friend of the pod, been around for a long time in cricket media circles and that type of thing, that Chris Martin said before the Bangladesh series, this is the one. This is the one where I'm going to reach double figures. He called it. He knew it. And so the story reads, it was over a cigarette as well, because despite being a fit guy, he didn't mind a fag, Chris Martin. So it reads in his Night Watchman story. Anyway.
There's a story of him punching darts, watching Dale Steyn bowl, like padded up, waiting to go in next. And he's like, this is the only way I'm going to get through this.
Love that about him. He never made it to 30 in 394 professional games of any kind. There was never a day when he got away in a first-class game. 394 games, never got to 30. And for 30 test matches, when you use that as the criteria, only he and Chandrasekhar have got fewer runs than wickets in Test cricket, and it's a massive gap for Martin. Martin took 233 Test wickets. He could really bowl, right? He was the leader of that attack, 71 matches, the 4th highest wicket aggregate for New Zealand in Test cricket when he retired. Only 123 runs, so 110 more wickets than runs, which is a massive disparity for that. Didn't score a single run between 2000 and 2004, in which time he added 41 test wickets. Now, his first-class average of 3.71 is relevant because there's only one man with a lower first-class batting average of a certain sample size, and that is one of my favourite ever stories of Hopper Reid, who, for the briefest time, was the fastest bowler in world cricket, who hit Jack Hobbs's hat that landed on his stumps, who had one outstanding test match, was a Surrey bowler. Then after that was never seen again because his accountancy firm, wasn't it, who he was working for, said that he wasn't permitted to tour. And he said, that's it. There's a great interview on YouTube with Hopper Reid and Christopher Martin Jenkins from before, well, both of them passed away maybe 30 or so years ago, which is quite sort of plummy accent and whatnot. And I think there's probably a book in Hopper Reid's life owing to the fact that he has got the lowest batting average ever, and for a time was the fastest bowler in the world. And the other thing about Chris Martin, he's the only batter in Test history to have been out for 2 diamond ducks in Test cricket. So That's a duck without facing a ball. Some people call a diamond duck other things, but let's provide some guardrails here. Diamond duck, having not faced a ball, that happened to him twice in Test cricket, once against England in 2004 and again against South Africa in 2013. And you mentioned before, how about ending on 599 first-class wickets? I know 600's, it's not traditionally a milestone we celebrate, but one away from something that is meaningful nevertheless. So they could have managed him to that, but he did retire at age 38. So he had a long and productive career. Still not entirely sure what 472 means. It could be the 479. It could be pleasure error. It may have something to do with his ducks. I'm not sure how it would work exactly, but how about the percentages? Courtney Walsh in top spot, 43 ducks in 184 innings. Broad in second spot, 39 in 244. Then Martin got 36 ducks in 104 test innings. So, worse than 3 in 10 of his test innings ended with him registering a duck. He once tried to explain it away because he used to cycle to games, and thus I assume that means he didn't have his cricket kit with him and couldn't practice his batting or something.
Oh, he's just he say he couldn't take a bat in the kit bag on his bike, which is not true because I also ride to games sometimes and I do take a bat with me. So that, but yeah, Ian O'Brien also said he didn't actually own batting boots because he was like, "It's no point. I'll just wear the bowling ones. Won't be out there for long." Yeah,
I've seen that as well. It's interesting because I suppose what he means by that, he didn't have half spikes, as some bowlers will use half spikes when they bat, but some like to wear full spikes. Batters and bowlers, so that's an interesting one. But yeah, finished at 38. His last 5 innings in Test cricket, no runs, 3 ducks, utterly remarkable. And there is an 11-minute 48 package on YouTube of every time that Chris Martin was bowled in Test cricket. I strongly recommend it. In its own way, it is art. He gets bowled in every possible way. He gets bowled trying to play straight. He gets bowled trying to hoik. He gets bowled when he's, broadly speaking, getting in line. He gets bowled when he's shitting himself backing away. He gets bowled chopping on. He gets bowled by Yorkers. He gets bowled every way. He gets bowled when it's too fast. He gets bowled when he misses the flight of the ball. It's just like everything you could imagine appears.
Every variation.
Every variation.
The infinite monkeys, infinite typewriters, infinite methods of getting bowled.
That's it. It's all of that, all of that and more. So for Dan, the man, 472. I hope you're talking about sexy Chris Martin, vegetarian of the year, Chris Martin, better looking than Natalie Portman. And if you are, with a fag hanging out of his mouth at the same time, I'm all the happier for it. That is my last contribution of the day. Jeff.
Beautiful. Thank you. While you've been talking, I've been looking at his one-day career, and I'm tipping he didn't take a lot of wickets in the 48th over, 47.2 overs, because they're almost all top order. They're almost all opening up. Jayasuriya, Adipatu, Sangakkara, Simon Kadich, Upal Taranga, Dilshan, Gilchrist, Alistair Cook, Ian Bell, Phil Mustard, Luke Wright. There's a couple. Maybe Michael Clark, Cameron White might have been deeper in the innings. Maybe Abdul Razak, JP Dumini. There's a couple, but I'm guessing he didn't do a lot of prodigious work at the death. That's my thinking on the matter. Anyway. Nice one.
Jeff, you've got 14 minutes to wrap up this episode. You're going to do so for Bala Sivaraman, who's a regular friend of the show. 142 USD. Bala has been with us since just about the start, I reckon, and it's nice to see him back in the list.
Yep, there's a clue that comes in that says this player is not quite a head of state or prime minister, but was still knighted, in inverted commas, for services to cricket, nicknamed with a respectful honorific suffix to a legendary Aussie PM who loved the game. The gentleman in question didn't quite do justice to his all-round talents in first-class cricket. Perhaps a Dinach Daush Bastard. I don't know if this is Irish. I'm not going to. I don't know why I pronounce Gaelic like it's Portuguese, but here we go. And I'm going to assume that means a dusty old bastard if you look it up in Irish. Anyway, I believe I have the answer. And I believe this is an interesting one, the road this took me down. We are talking about a player, Adam, named Modi Reddy Venkat Narasma Rao, who ends up on scorecards as MV Narasma Rao. He was known in India colloquially as Bobji and then later morphed into Bobby Rao. So this is how names can work from this part of the world. He's Hyderabadi. He's born in the 50s, so he's 70 years old at the moment. with a sporadically very long career for Hyderabad from 1971 to 1989. All-rounder, decent bat, leg spinner in that kind of era and in that kind of mould of like a Chandu Borde kind of player where you can bat middle order and you can bowl some good leg spin. From the reports I read, it sounds like the action was a bit more Anil Kumble, high arm, a lot of bounce, that kind of thing. Youngest of 7 kids, parents from farming families, played school cricket, and then in time-honoured fashion, he got his break by being the scorer for his older brother's side, and someone didn't turn up, and he got a gig, which we can all identify with. I think this is how I played for the Victorian Indigenous over 50s team.
Yeah, you got to be in it to win it. It's how Brian Waddle nearly played a Test match. You've just got to be there. You've just got to be there, and you got to hope for an outbreak. And one day I'll play a Test match in Gaul because of this. They'll need an extra spinner, and they'll turn to me when 7 Australians,
72 years old.
I'll always be available. A bit like Greg Matthews, like I'll always be available. Don't worry about that.
So anyway, he's good enough to play Ranji Trophy for Hyderabad by the age of 18. His captain, ML Jaisma, the guy we mentioned earlier with the flair and the neckerchief and the 500 minutes at the crease. First game, the grudge match, the quarterfinal against Associated Cement Company. My word, those were some tough contests back at the time. It was a draw, and they decided it with a toss of the coin, which is what they used to do in those days. Horrible stuff. Imagine losing in a knockout game on a coin toss. Anyway, settles in as a solid player, tends to average somewhere from 40 to 50 with the bat most of his seasons, takes 10 to 20 wickets at a good average, sometimes under 20s, sometimes low 20s. And he has a brief foray into Test cricket when Gavaskar is leading the side in between 1978 and 79, plays the Windies at Kolkata and Chennai, plays the Australians at Delhi and Kolkata, takes a couple of wickets, gets Elvin Kalacharan, Graham Yallop and Peter Sleep. Those are his 3 Test victims. Bats half a dozen times, doesn't make any. Until his last innings, he makes an important 20 not out to earn them a draw, batting for quite a long time. Good under the lid, fields in close and takes 8 catches, but that's that. Hasn't done enough. Initially, he'd replaced Chandrasekhar, who you mentioned earlier, who was a hell of a bowler. So he was batting higher than Chandrasekhar would have. But if you're coming into the side for his bowling, you've got to do something more with the ball. Yep. So needed more from both the strings to his bow, I guess. But he goes back to captain Hyderabad after this, and he gets offered this job coaching in Ireland at a place called Strabane. One of our correspondents will let me know how I'm supposed to say that. And this is the 80s, so it's the middle of the Troubles. This is there's IRA, the war's going on, stuff's getting blown up. It's a bad time, and he sees cricket as a way to connect with young men in the community and try to give them something else to do and try to create something positive in a time when Ireland needs that. So he builds up the club as something that becomes pretty special. It becomes a lot more successful than it had been in between travelling back and forth to India to play Ranji Trophy for Hyderabad. So he's not playing a huge number of games. He ends up with just over 100 first-class games, I think, and has a decent record, but he's not playing vast amounts of first-class cricket. But he's doing both, and things are getting busier. He falls in love with an Irish woman named Josephine. He marries her. They're going back and forth to India a bit. And then you'll enjoy this, Adam, as a politics nuff. He leads a revolt against the Hyderabad Cricket Association as captain, where there's some dispute with the suits about training methods or appearances or something. So they suspend a bunch of the players and they sack him as captain. So the players revolt and they run a rival ticket led by players to overthrow the board. Oh. Like, stack the branches, get Adam Somyurek in, run the numbers, crunch everything that needs to be crunched, and they win. They knock off the board and take over. On a player-led ticket.
Yeah, and then Somyurek gets kicked out of the party, and now ends up spending his life on Twitter. I mean, imagine that, sitting in the upper house probably for forever, because he'll keep getting he'll get. I don't know who's he running with these days. Somyurek, I'm not sure who.
Not sure. Feels like a Clive Palmer.
It'll be some rogue operation having decided to keep doing that type of thing. But yeah, don't get caught with your henchmen ripping money out of the ATMs when you've got secret cameras everywhere. That's not that he would have known, I guess. But anyway, all's well that ends well.
So hostile takeover, knock off the board, and reinstall him as captain, which I thought you would enjoy. The machinations behind the scenes, and you might have thought that would destabilise things, what do? They only go and win the fucking Ranji Trophy that season, having done it once. Hyderabad won it in 1937, and then this was the second time they'd ever won it, 1987, and they've never won it again. So the only time since pre-World War II that they've had the ultimate success in that tournament is when they took over the board in a player-led revolt. It's a narrow thing as well. It's first innings points. They save it. They defend it by 24 runs to win the title, and then they play the Irani Trophy, where the winner of the Ranji plays the rest of India team, and they win that on first innings points narrowly as well. 27 runs to margin there, hold them off. And our guy makes 65, second top scorer in that innings. So captains Hyderabad 40 times in total, wins 13 but only loses 4. This is the age of draws. So a pretty successful tenure captaining Hyderabad. And in the end, he moves to Ireland full-time, goes back with his wife. He runs a sports centre there. Runs into various issues with discrimination. And so in order to combat that, because he doesn't mind a stoush, it seems, he starts the Strabane Ethnic Community Association, which is designed to help new arrivals settle into Irish life and society, make sure that he runs language classes, has community meetings and activities, and tries to make things easier for people like him who are arriving. Well,
some of the bits there are obviously very honourable, but some of the bits remind me of some of those branch stacking operations that I got to see at close quarters when I was younger as well, with new arrivals joining when the aforementioned Shomurek operation. I should say, by the way, that he is no longer a member of the Democratic Labour Party either, which he joined to get.
He went Bob Santamaria.
The DLP, if I recall correctly, had an upper house member elected in 2006, I reckon.
Sounds
from
familiar.
time to time they've had, because the way the upper house works, right? There's 5 to be elected in each region.
Preference whisperer, spillover.
You got it. It doesn't take much to end up with the 5th spot, provided you've got your shit together and you got the right preference flow. So Somurek got up in that election 2022 as the DLP candidate for Northern Metro region. And then he left the Democratic Labour Party in 2024 as an independent again. He'll be on a journey. On a journey, I've no doubt. He'll be on a journey to being an increasingly mad member of the crossbench. I don't know what he's up to on Twitter right now. I don't want to know. But it won't be good. It won't be good. And it'll be inspired by some pretty wild shit, I've no doubt. What a weird life in politics he's led. Anyway, enough about Adam Somurek.
Bobby Rao, we're talking about, who by now has gone full Irish. He ends up by the mid-90s. He finds himself playing for Ireland. He plays against Scotland, plays against Wales, a touring New Zealand side. He notches a couple of official List A games against county teams. Doesn't scale any great heights in these games, but he's there. He's putting in. He's bowling a few overs. He's batting in the middle order. He's opening the batting from time to time. He's making a few runs. And by the end of the 90s, he's assistant coach for Ireland. And then he's head coach briefly when Mark Hendricks leaves the job. He fills in there for a time and loves to talk about who he coached. So he cites he had a coaching school in Hyderabad where VVS Lakshman attended for a time. So he definitely claims Lakshman as one of his, one of the great Hyderabadi products. Mitali Raj apparently also spent some time at the Bobby Rao Academy, which had a different name, but we'll call it that. But probably the proudest moment you can find on his record was 2018 when Ireland finally played a test, and he was there watching on and citing that 9 of those players were players he'd coached at one point or other through their journeys in Irish cricket since he first rocked up in Ireland back in 1980 and started going back and forth the time that he spent at Strabane at a place called Sion Mills at the Hyderabad Centre of Excellence. He was all along the line doing different parts. And is Sion Mills familiar to you?
It is. It's where Ireland bowled out the West Indies for 27, wasn't it?
Oh yes, 26
in a one-day declaration game in 1969. Again, digging back into the memories here from when covering and writing about this stuff years ago now. But the famous day in Irish cricket when they happened upon a Windies team who'd been, they've been out the night before and all the rest of it, but still got to do the job.
Still got to get them
and beat them in a one-day declaration game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he has had a significant part to play in Irish cricket, but I think more broadly in Irish cultural life. So the knighthood, the inverted commas knighthood from the Clue, is because he was in recognition, I think, of more broad social contributions to social strength and helping migrants feel at home arriving there. He was awarded an OBE a few years ago, which is one of the few good uses of the honours list, when people who actually do good things for their community get a gong rather than the same parade of voracious dipshits who just wander around Westminster and work for somebody for a few years and then get rewarded for the rest of their lives in the foul and disgusting way that the British honour system usually works, to give more things to people who already have more than they will ever know what to do with. Occasionally somebody gets one who deserves it in recognition for what they've done as a contributor. So Bobby Rao, in the Irish sense these days, who was Modi Reddy Venkat Narasimha Rao as things began in Hyderabad all those years ago. There you go. That one, I believe, Bala, is the number for you.
Brilliant. We should be campaigning for some more Order of Australia gongs at some point soon. Still got to get one for Belinda. If we don't get one soon, then we'll miss out. We'll lose the momentum for it. Good prompts to write to your local MP and tell them that the great cricket archivist deserves recognition at the next time that they hand these things out. Maybe on King's birthday, Monday next week. Normally one of those occasions, isn't it? Anyway, that's basically the show.
I totally forgot to find out what the number was, by the way. I was sure I had the story right.
That's all right. I'm sure Bala will forgive you. 142 was his number. We've got one confirmation, Sam Burt, 549, jumping in to confirm that I was right with his nerd pledge. Also an Ozpol nerd, who enjoyed the parallel insights of cricket and politics. Sam, I don't remember off the top of my head what my answer was in relation to cricket and politics, but I hope that my little drive-bys there on Adam Somyurek were sufficient to keep you excited about today's show. He'll probably come out and try and, anyway, let's not speculate. Jeff, I've got to go. You've got to go as well. Yeah. That's us done. It's been Storytime 231. It's been nice to be here. Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. We bloody love them, as we do every single patron who makes this enterprise viable. Patreon.com/the final word. Get on there, be part of what we're doing. It is an enormous 2025 for us. And the way that we can keep doing it the way we're doing it is in no small part the foundation that's laid by our patrons, which makes it possible to make this program and so many more. Over 300 eps we've made in the last 12 months, which is a lot of podcasting. So that's us done. Thank you so much for your company. And please have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.